Depending on where you are in the world, the snow is starting to fall, and snow is a great insulator for noise. So, to listen to some of your really heavy, really loud music, consider doing it outside in a nice snowstorm. It honestly provides some of the best acoustics. We're going to bring that energy with us on today's episode of The Metalhead. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back.
Hello.
It's the, I almost forgot to introduce myself. I am your one co-host, Michael Michelle.
I'm Grace. I'm wearing a hat.
Wearing a hat. I love that hat. When I saw that hat, and now that we have more of a visual media, for those of you that don't know, we are on YouTube now. So you can actually see us and follow us along.
Yeah, and for those that aren't, it's a hat that says "Women want me, fish fear me," which I thought was really funny in the peak of lockdown. So I ordered one of these hats myself and then sent like 4 or 5 of them to other people because I thought it'd be funny.
Yeah.
Truly a different time.
It's the joke that keeps on giving, honestly. If I had a hat like that, I would wear it all day, every day.
Yes. Yeah.
I just love it.
And at the moment, I am wearing it all day, every day, because my fringe at the moment is, it's not looking too good.
It happens. It happens. It looks okay, but it doesn't look great. It looks okay.
The hat's firmly staying on for the foreseeable. I think we're gonna keep it on here, and it'll be fine.
Amazing. Well, in happier news, we always like to start off the podcast with what we're listening to. So, Grace, what are you listening to lately?
Oh, well, I mean, it's been more album of the year stuff. I've had my little book ticking off many artists and bands and albums, discovering new stuff. I've been listening to a lot of Hellas as well. Hellas.
Ooh, yeah.
The Swedish band. Been enjoying them. I've been enjoying a little spingle of Dream Theater. The Sparks album. Baroness. And a reasonable chunk of King Gizzard, who it kind of looks like are going to be my most listened to artists this year, which I didn't really anticipate. But they've crept up.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the episode we're going to dive into some conversations about Spotify Wrapped. Because interestingly enough, this is the first year, I think, in like 4 years that King Giz wasn't in my top 5. Yeah, just, I don't know, maybe I wasn't feeling them this year or as much, but yeah.
I mean, I only really properly dived into them this year. You know, I was very surface level before, so I've been catching up with older records and stuff, so not just following the new ones.
So that's probably why I because there's only a zero sum of listens with King Giz. You know, the more one person listens to it, the more somebody else has to stop listening to it. So it's just how it works, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I have been listening to a lot of Christmas music. Once December 13th, 12th hits, I dive deep into Christmas music. So I've got the roster of, the Dean Martin, the Bing Crosbys, the Ella Fitzgerald, the classic stuff. But this year it's been a lot of like more contemporary stuff. Like last year, the Backstreet Boys put out a Christmas record. And I've been listening to that quite a bit because I grew up with the Backstreet Boys. So it's just nice.
I'm sure last year when we went to a record store, you picked up a Christmas vinyl. I can't think for the life of me what it was.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I mean, that tracks, because usually around November, and that's when we were hanging out, I pick up a handful of them. Yeah, I can't for the life of me remember which one it was, though. I want to say it was maybe like a Mannheim Steamroller. Maybe.
I'll have to check the archives.
Yeah. I've also been listening to the new Dolly album, the Rockstar record. And it's pretty good. It's kind of like I grew up on the classic rock radio station because we had 2 of them that I would bounce back and forth, one from Toronto and one from the city that I grew up in. And it feels like putting on that radio station, except it's all done by Dolly. So it's like all the really classic rock songs like Stairway to Heaven and Freebird and Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, Let It Be. It's like just tuning into that for about 2 hours or so. So it's a good time.
Very cool.
It's a good time.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, but let's get into the conversation that I think I'm most excited for, which is the Spotify Wrap. This morning I woke up and my phone let me know that the Spotify Wrap is here, and I'm the kind of person that looks forward to it every year. I love seeing the stats. I'm a stat guy. And I love seeing like which artists I've been listening to more or less. But I know that you have some thoughts about it.
Oh, yeah. Here's the thing, right? I just think it's flawed. Mm-hmm. My reasoning, and this is widely known, is that it cuts off at the end of October. So come November 1st, anything you listen to isn't going into your Spotify Wrapped, and it doesn't wrap round from the last year. It's January 1st to the end of October. So I worked this out earlier. You're missing 16.6% of your year's worth of listening. Just goes up in smoke. You're losing all those numbers. Why?
Yeah.
Where have they gone? You know what I mean?
I have a theory about this, if you'll indulge me. Because my Spotify Wrap would look vastly, vastly different if it came out like January 1st or even like halfway through January for everything from last year. Because as I mentioned, once November 12th hits, it's nothing but Christmas music for me. So every year, all of my favorite genres would just be Christmas music. It'd be Michael Bublé. It would be, who else do I have? Carrie Underwood. And I recently picked up Gwen Stefani's. And so it would be all these like really large Christmas records. Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey easily would be my top artist. So there's a part of me that almost is okay with it missing November and December, even though we're only really counting 10 out of the 12 months. But I totally understand what you're saying. We're missing those numbers. Like, I would really like to know. I would really like to know how much music I actually listen throughout the entire year rather than just those first 10 months. Yeah.
That's where Last FM comes in. And I should say as well, right, Apple Music have released a replay. So I don't use Spotify. I gave up Spotify, I think about 2.5, maybe 3.5 years ago now.
Okay.
And I've been purely on the Apple Music drive, which has been fine. I don't miss Spotify. Yeah. I don't find there's anything missing on Apple Music ever. Like if I'm trying to find an album, it's there. But mostly I just use it so that my offline library can sync with my phone. Works with Android as well. So all of my CDs are inside Apple Music. They're inside Apple Music's cloud. They're available on my phone. I can go to my phone. They're there. I can stream them from Apple's cloud. CDs that I own, my own collection. Yeah. There it is. I can also download them to my phone. I don't have to do stuff with cables anymore. And it's that's what I use it for. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't tend to go into playlists and listen to playlists people have made or listen to Discover Weekly or whatever. I just want to listen to my music. And I found even before I was darting between listening to stuff on Spotify and Apple Music because I've had iTunes since the mid-2000s, right?
Yeah.
So that music collection goes back way further than the Spotify one ever did. And I was an early adopter of Spotify back when it was completely free.
Yeah.
I actually remember a silly little hack we used to have where they turned ads on in the UK. So you started having adverts and they started rolling out premium. But if you downloaded the Spotify installation file from the Australian Spotify site, again, this is like a long time ago.
Yeah.
But if you did that, it didn't have any adverts in it because they hadn't programmed it in.
Amazing.
So that worked for a little while, which was quite funny. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know, but Apple's replay, Apple Music Replay is it has the same issues. It's missing loads of stuff.
Yeah.
How do I know that? I know that because I use Last.fm.
Yeah.
I've been using that longer than anything else to track my listens. I've been using it 12 years, 13 years now. It has everything. It's fucking accurate as well. Because if I go to a friend's house and we listen to a vinyl, I'll go on Universal Scrobbler, I'll add it that I've listened to it. And I'll get those plays and artist listens and that stuff. If I go on a road trip with someone else, they're scrolling to Last.fm, I can go to, I use a third-party platform for this, but I can put in their username, select all the songs I listened to while we were on that road trip, boom, they're in my collection of track listens. So it's very accurate. I did consider at one point adding in set lists of live shows I've been to, but I kind of ended up deciding against that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's incredibly accurate, and I compare that to Apple Music. And it's like, well, Apple Music's missing stuff because I listen to my offline library loads.
Yeah.
So it's maybe I'm listening to a vinyl, maybe I'm listening at a friend's house, maybe I'm listening to. I think you can scrobble from the radio at some platforms as well. Whatever it is, it's just missing stuff. And I can look at that comparison directly, and I can see, well, I've listened to this stuff way more. So it's like, okay, well, Last.fm, did they do a Wrapped? Yeah. Comes out in January. Covers the whole year.
There you go.
Yeah, right?
Beauties.
So you get all the numbers. You get all the information. It's all there. And obviously you can run reports on your listening as you go throughout the year. And that sounds like, I sound like I'm selling it. It's a free platform. You can pay for premium, which I do. It's like £3 a month. But it's like, you don't need to. It just has a couple of random bonus features. But I was just like, I want to pay for this because what if I don't want this service to go? I want them to I want them to see that there's people that use this religiously. So much so that I even have like an API call to my Last.fm that links to my CD collection. So I can look at my own CD collection and see how many times I've listened to specific offline material. And it's a little bit, I don't know, I'm very tied into this and seeing all the Spotify Wraps come out and they're all just kind of like missing the information. I don't know. It's just like, what if you release your album in December as an artist, right? And then you get your Spotify Wrapped and it's like the first, or even November 1st, right? You're missing the first 2 months of your data in those Wrapped reports. It's like, well, that's big. There's people releasing albums in the last couple of weeks, like TEMIC, like Earthside.
Yeah.
Peter
Gabriel is putting out his album this Friday. So
that's very soon.
Yeah, depending on when this episode goes live, it's today. And the new Moon Safari record is dropping next week. So, and you are selling me on the Apple Music only because I do still use my iTunes fairly regularly for a lot of the promotional albums that I get. Because obviously it's not available on Spotify and I can't upload my songs to Spotify. I think there might be a way, but I haven't figured it out.
Yeah. But that's the thing, Apple Music costs the same. I find the interface is like, it's not trying to sell you anything. It's not really trying to market you anything. I feel a bit more in control of what I listen to rather than influenced by the program, by the software telling me what I want.
Yeah.
If you want that, then that's fine. Get Spotify.
Yeah.
I also like that Apple has a higher commission of revenue for artists. I can't remember. I think it might be twice as much as Spotify. I was gonna say that's very easy because Spotify gives it's nothing. Penny. It's nothing. It's minuscule. But yeah, it's. I think it's double Spotify, and then Tidal's like a bit more than that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But I've this is going from my brain, not from notes.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know, and they're the reason other platforms started offering more stuff. Because obviously all the Dolby Atmos mixes and stuff are just included with Apple Music, whereas Spotify, I think they were trying to launch a premium tier or increase the price or something, right? To add those in. And
like
then they
this.
ended up caving because they were like, well, Tidal and Apple Music both do it for this. So it's like, oh, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's. I mean, I'm a huge Spotify user. My Spotify Wrap came back with astronomical numbers that I'm not surprised with at all. But like my biggest issue that I have for Spotify is the compression of the tracks, specifically on streaming. Like you can download on a little bit of a higher resolution, but when you're streaming it, that just I don't know. I'm an audiophile, right? I like the highest resolution that I can get with songs. So typically I'm playing the downloaded songs that I have rather than streaming. But that's my only criticism. But if they're starting to stream in some like the Adobe Atmos high definition, I will be very excited about that.
Yeah, but then Apple already does it.
But Apple already does it, right?
Years, right? It's like
and that's the thing. It's like the technology is here, so why aren't they just? Well, I already know why they're not doing it, but like, why?
Yeah.
Why just make people wait for it?
Yeah, and I should say as well, I only switched to an iPhone earlier this year. Before then, I had an Android phone right up until I'll say April. I got this. My old phone was like 5 years old. It was time. But I had zero problems using Apple Music on an Android phone, right? Which I feel like is another thing I hear. It's like, oh, I have an Android, it's not going to work. I'm like, huh?
Yeah,
it's fine. Nothing wrong with it. It's like, you can listen to music. The interface is pretty slick. So
yeah, because I always figured like growing up, like I at first I listened to, now this is going way back because I had like a Windows 95 computer and then a Windows 98 computer. But like I remember when my main listening device or application was iTunes, or like the Apple listening music, because the Windows Media Player WMA was fine. It was fine. Now, again, this is when we didn't have anything else. This was like you either had Windows Media Player or you could find and download the Apple. And I regularly used the Apple, even though it was a Windows computer. So I always figured it's kind of the same, even though Android is running off of a different kind of interface.
Yeah.
It's still an application that you can just download to your phone, right? So
that's kind of where I'm at. And I feel like, I do a lot of music listening. I feel like I've refined this over like 15 years of finding out what works and what doesn't. And there's no doubt Spotify is an amazing product and revolutionized accessibility to music. It'd be cool if they paid artists more and changed their revenue model a bit. But it's like,
yeah, and maybe don't give platforms to active racists and bigots. That's my biggest gripe. Like
that.
High resolution of audio is one thing. Like I can give them a pass for that, but actively providing platforms for racists and bigots, that's that's another camp.
Some of their podcast acquisition choices were definitely questionable over the
a little questionable. I've seen a lot of people leave more for that reason than I have, I think, for almost any other reason. But I mean, just this whole conversation's got me reminded of my first streaming application of music, which was a small independent one that got shut down because of copyright reasons, but that was Groove Shark way back in the day.
I've used Groove Shark.
I very like, that was my first foray, because up until that point it was either albums that I already owned or YouTube. Like those were my two outlets for listening to music. And then when Groove Shark came around, it blew my mind. I'm like, I could listen to anything on here, or at least like anything I could think of, because this was the first time I could hear like Moon Safari outside of YouTube, or like Car Mechanic, because like it was just so hard to find that kind of music. Now it's just on your fingertips. But I remember when Groove Shark first came out, and I was so enthralled with it, and then when they shut it down, and then Spotify came out, I think like a couple months later, I'm like, oh, it's just Groove Shark 2.0. It's a little bit of a different interface, but everything else is the same.
I mean, the other one I used to use back in the day was called Plug DJ, like plug.dj,
Okay, yeah.
which was kind of like an IRC chat room with like a
Mm-hmm.
shared music listening thing bolted
that's
onto
fun.
it. So everyone could like, you'd choose a song and it would get queued up and you'd like cycle through the songs
Oh,
in
that's
like a
cool.
playlist. So you kind of like build a playlist with your friends, listen along as you go and like discuss it in like a chat room.
That's really cool.
Which was quite fun because it felt very dynamic as well, because you would, depending on what chat room you joined, maybe you joined like a metal one or a pop one or a jazz one, people would kind of play off each other and you kind of see like, oh, someone's playing some, I don't know, some Amon Amarth. It's like, okay, right, let's do some more like Swedish like death metal and like let's plug in some Opeth and let's keep us like a Sweden theme. And you kind of dynamically and naturally sort of gravitated towards certain things depending on who was there. And I used to really enjoy it, but
I was going to say,
let's call out to Last FM though.
Oh yeah, I wish I used Last FM a lot more. I have an account on there, but I don't know, it never quite sucked me in. And unfortunately, a lot of the new fancy features of Spotify keep my eyes more towards the Spotify. Like I'm really obsessed right now with the blended playlists where you can bring in your friends to create their own. I have a group chat with a bunch of my music reviewer pals from YouTube. And we there's like 7 of us now that are sharing a single playlist that just updates every day. It's bonkers and bananas because one of us will start listening to something completely off the wall, like a bunch of songs from the Jungle Book. And then all of a sudden you're listening to Haken, you're listening to Earthside, you're listening to Soen, and then all of a sudden King Louis pops up and starts singing I Want to Be Like You. It's like, oh, okay, sure, that sounds that checks out.
Fantastic.
Sounds great. Yeah. So, really quick, just to kind of tie this all off with a little bit of a bow. Do you want to hear what because I always love sharing, and my partner got her Spotify Wrapped, and I like climbed over the couch in order to see it. Have you seen what my Spotify Wrapped top 5 were?
Well, I know it's not King Gizzard, so I'm
King
welcome
Gizzard.
to hear.
Yeah. My first one doesn't surprise me at all. Number 1 is still Kate Bush. It's been Kate Bush for the last 3 years, and at this point, I don't see it changing. Number 2 was actually really interesting for me. It's a Newfoundland band called Buddy Was His Name and the Other Fellers. If you're not familiar with this band, I highly recommend checking them out. Oh man, I'm trying to think of like a cultural touchstone that people could use. Canada has a lot of these like very fun, kind of jokey bands that once in a while will put out like a completely straight and serious song, and that will bring them a lot of notoriety. Like Bare Naked Ladies, I think is. Yeah, Nickelback. But I'm thinking of like Bare Naked Ladies, right? Like they have songs like If I Had $1 Million and like the Cow song and like all these really like stupid frat boy songs. But then out of nowhere, you'll have like a cover of Lovers in a Dangerous Time. Buddy What's His Name and the Other Fellers have songs like, and it's much more Newfoundland flavored, like The Shed, My Quad, Ojas, Mojas, Blowjas. But then you have songs like Sarah and Saltwater Joys that just, I don't know, it hits you in the hearts. It's very descriptive of the music from Newfoundland. So that was my number 2. And then number 3 to 5 are pretty, yeah, like I'm not surprised. Like Peter Gabriel, Lana Del Rey, and Bear Ghost are my last 3. So,
oh, very cool.
Yeah, not too surprising.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all very much on brand. Like, let's be real.
It is. Yeah.
I'll run through my top 5 so far.
Sure.
Last FM, there's still more to go. But
more to go.
King Gizzard at the top, which is again, I'm kind of surprised at that, but there they are. Number 1. Number 2, we got Neil Morse.
Yeah.
Not the band, just the solo stuff.
Just the solo stuff, yeah.
Spinning a lot of Testimony 1 and 2 this year, so.
Nice. Wait, so is like his solo stuff, is that on like Last FM and whatnot? Because they're not on Spotify. The only ones from Spotify I think are his most recent ones, like Sola Gradia and Joseph Part 1. I think those are like...
No, I have physicals, so those just visit to my iTunes.
Okay.
And then iTunes is like Last FM picks that up from whatever I'm playing on iTunes and sticks that on my tracking.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah,
because I was just like,
my
whoa,
offline
hold
library.
up. If Neil Morse is over on Last FM, screw Spotify. I'm going over to Last, right?
Nah, you got to sign up for Waterfall.
I already have, but they don't take my
yeah.
credit card anymore, so
Oh no,
I'm a little bitter. Anyway,
number 3 we got Yes. So there you go.
Yep.
Number 4 we got Dream Theater. You can probably guess why.
Yeah.
I've been spinning their
Just
stuff a
spinning
lot since the
Yep.
announcement.
the
But
big
even before that, to be fair. And number 5, weirdly enough, we've got Paramore, which is kind of not what I would expect. But I really like their new album.
Yeah, it's a banger.
I kind of I spun it a lot earlier in the year, and I've kind of been sleeping on it the last few months. So I think I need to get back in there and just start spinning Paramore and just enjoying life. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm interested to see if that changes between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
If anything else, I mean, Periphery is only 15 plays behind.
There you go. And the new Moon Safari hasn't quite dropped yet, and I've had a sneak peek, and ooh, it is tasty. It is tasty.
Exciting.
Yeah.
You know what else is tasty?
What is also tasty?
Cake, but there's something else as well, and that's the Shaky Knees Festival.
It is, yeah. So moving on to our festival watch. This is coming out pretty early in the year, May 3rd to 5th at the Central Park, Atlanta. The pre-sales are on sale today, or actually yesterday, because this is most likely coming out on Friday, Thursday, November 30th, for the pre-sale. And we've got some pretty tasty set list here. Pretty tasty set list.
Yeah, I could eat this up. I'm seeing we got the Queens of the Stone Age. We got the Foo Fighters, Billy Idol, Dinosaur Jr., Nova Twins, Royal Bloods, The Offspring, Arcade Fire, Noah Kahan, Eve's Tumor, Metric, All Them Witches, Psychedelic Porn Crumpets, Pond, Interpol. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on.
We got the Canadian Arcade Fire on there. Yeah, we've got oh man, all the big ones I think you covered. I think Billy Idol is there as well. So like we got some classic stuff, we've got some contemporary stuff, we've got some indie darlings. Like I can't believe they got pigs. Like that's so yeah, we've got some really tasty stuff on this one. The 3 nights. It looks like Saturday has a double headliner of Weezer and Queens of the Stone Age. And I want to say Sunday as well. It's looking like Foo Fighters and Billy Idol. So it's pretty tasty. I have to admit, it's pretty tasty.
It is, yeah. It's pretty tasty. Not quite enough there, maybe, for me to be that interested. But there's little guys in there that I'm like,
yeah. I wouldn't necessarily turn it up or pass it up if I could like make it work. But I much like you, like I think I would love to see Arcade Fire. I would love to see Foo Fighters. I would love to see Queens of the Stone Age and Interpol and Metric. All Them Witches, of course, and I've already mentioned pigs. Even the Psychedelic Porn Crumpets, I think I would be cool. But everything else, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But I'm not going to lose sleep if I don't miss them. So, yeah, I can see a lot of people loving this one, though. So, expect some big traction for that one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Speaking of big traction.
Big traction.
We've got two albums that
2 album reviews.
Getting some they're getting traction. I don't know about big. Big is it's
a
arbitrary.
relative term. I think it's a relative term.
Yeah, it's a relative term. Yeah,
Yeah.
big compared to uh, maybe Jeff down the road that's just released the cover of Wonderwall recorded on his phone. I think they're bigger than that.
I probably.
Probably.
For both of these, I've been really looking forward to for different reasons, right? Like, let's dive in. Which one do we want to talk about first?
I mean, I have more to say about TEMIC, I think, over Earthside.
Let's go into TEMIC then. Yeah.
I've been addicted.
Yep.
It's like at least once a day, I think, for the last little bit. TEMIC's gone on. I've spun TEMIC. And there's a few reasons for that. For me, like when I originally got into Haken, I was really, it was the Affinity era, and I was really excited by the synths and the amount of like clever synth and sound design that was inside that record that I hadn't really heard elsewhere. Granted, my ears weren't that well versed back in 2016. Certainly not what they are now. But I hadn't really heard that before. Those kind of like almost dubsteppy little flavors, bits of, I'm hearing influences of bands like Infected Mushroom and like all of this stuff. And I was like, oh. But then it's also got incredible guitars, incredible vocals, incredible drums. And I'm just like, oh, wow, this is the whole package. This band has everything I want from music. And then I started to explore around it. Went to the earlier stuff. The Mountains, different but amazing. Aquarius and Visions, different but amazing. And, Vector, again, came out. Loved it. Virus came out, and I didn't love it as much. Fauna's come out, and I loved it. To be clear. But, yeah, I was kind of like, there's not... That kind of synthy stuff's gone a bit from Virus. I was like, where's that gone? I'm kind of missing that. Yeah. And then we find out Diego's the part of the band. So there you go, right? And I've kind of just been waiting ever since to see what he does next, because I feel like he'd gotten to a point with Vector where the sounds that were emanating from the synths were, very polished, very tasty, very delicious. And we've just been waiting for a while. I've known TEMIC was coming for a little bit. A couple of years. I know Diego's been working on stuff, and hearing it come out, be released, I was like, oh, this is it. This is the announcement. It's happening. First single, loved it. Second single, loved it. Listened to the record, I was like, damn, I love it. But obviously, it's not just Diego. It's some other musicians that I fucking love as well. Eric Gillette, incredible guitarist. I've seen him live a few times playing with the Neil Morse band. I saw him at Morsefest this year, and also playing in Mike Portnoy's Shattered Fortress.
Yep.
Incredible chops. Man can just play for days, effortlessly. And he does on this record as well, but I'd say he's almost slightly more restrained. I feel like the compositions are constructed in a way that gives balance to the different musicians. They all get their time to sort of come to the front of the stage, and then go back to their little corner and do what they're doing. So his playing style is, kind of a bit different to what he's done on other stuff. You got Samantha Sanders, quite a well-known session musician. I think, he's been in a couple bands over the years, but yeah, mostly known for just being like a incredibly solid metal session drummer. Putting down the beats, there's Fall to the Floor disco, there's like weird time signatures, one of the songs in like 15/8. And obviously, a lead singer as well, a man from Marathon who I know a lot of my friends like. I've never quite dived into that, but incredible pipes, blasting over the record. And it's just kind of, again, it brings me back to Affinity, where I was like, this is everything I want from a record. It's got tasty guitars. It's heavy. It's got synths, and those synths have time to breathe. Because again, I'm a synth player, keyboard player, piano player first. Before anything else. So when I hear an album that's like got really good synths, and they're prominent and part of the sound. It's not just an added afterthought. I'm like, ooh, yes, okay. And it gets me excited. So yeah, I mean, I've been loving this record, really, a lot more than I thought I would. I feel like I had a certain expectation, but I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is checking all the boxes in my brain. So it's early days for TEMIC, first album.
Yeah.
But it's an exciting group of people that, I should say, on bass as well as Jacob Umansky, who was from Intervals. But he just did, like, he came in as a session player, I think, rather than, like, he's not in the band.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of really cool, like, slap bass bits that I'm like, oh, hello.
Ooh, we got some good stuff now.
Yeah, it's just got little flavors of everything I like from a record. So yeah, it's just, I've just been listening to it a lot.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. I was really looking forward to this. I really wanted to see what Diego was going to be doing after Haken, because much like you, I enjoyed Virus, but not nearly as much as Vector from Haken, and part of it was the lack of keyboards. And I know Diego wanted to do something different. The two bands were, or Haken and him, I feel like the two were starting to grow apart a little bit, and luckily they recognized that, and instead of trying to force it, they just amicably parted ways. And I was always excited to see what Diego was going to do next after that. And I knew he was spending a lot of time also with the Devin Townsend project, or I guess just Devin Townsend. So
he's had little flavors on Lightwork and the puzzle. I think
he's so. Yeah. And touring with the whole Empath Live stuff, which I could see that was definitely where his heart lies, and I can see he brought that energy into TEMIC, and I've been having a ball with it. I've always said that I'm shocked that progressive rock and progressive metal haven't embraced more of that kind of dubsteppy house sounds in their compositions, because dubstep really is at the root a very progressive style of music. It's a build up and a payoff in all of their styles. You're waiting for the drop, and then when the drop happens, you ride that into the next build up. And I am so glad to hear it here, because outside of 2 or 3 bands, not a whole lot of progressive metal bands have even really played with that flavor.
And I feel like before I even really, I've always been a fan of progressive rock, but before I really deep dove into the progressive metal genre in my early teens, I was spinning a lot of Deadmau5, and I was listening to Approaching Nirvana and Chasing Status and Cameron Crooked and Infected Mushroom, and that was where my brain was for maybe 2 or 3 years, I think, before I started getting into Opeth and gatewaying into down the rabbit hole. So that's what I mean, where I would, I'd hit Haken, a few years after I'd sort of stopped listening to the EDM stuff. And I was like, oh, this is both worlds. And yeah, TEMIC kind of feels like that as well. There's lots of moments where I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, here's the influence, because I know Diego's a huge fan of Infected Mushroom. So he comes from that place as well, where he kind of loves a bit of both. So it's a nice, it's a good record.
It is a good record. I highly recommend it, honestly. This is in my mind, one of the best progressive metal records this year, and we've had a lot of really, really good progressive metal outfits this year. And I think this is, a bunch of really talented musicians playing extremely well together. And I love that this is kind of their first footing, and I really can't wait to hear what they have next, just because, much like you, I can't stop spinning this album. There's maybe 3 albums right now that are in my metal roster. It's this, Green Lung, and Earthside are the 3 that I've been spinning pretty regularly, and I find now it's TEMIC that's kind of raising to the top. But
Earthside, eh?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a foreshadowing there. A little bit of foreshadowing. So, how familiar are you with Earthside? Because I remember when they dropped their first album in 2015,
Yeah.
and I loved. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was really interesting. I didn't love it, but I thought it was really funky. And then I saw them open up for Leprous when Leprous was doing their Congregation tour. And, you know, it was like this really weird CD bar that I saw them in Toronto where like the stage was maybe 3 feet tall. You know, so it's like more of a raised platform than a stage. But yeah, Earthside was great live. They had a lot of fun and I thought they were really good. And I was always like waiting for the next album. And I was like, oh, any day now, any day now, we're going to get another Earthside album. And it took them like 8 years to get this puppy out. So
Yeah.
I came to this record with a little bit of apprehension because whenever a band takes this long to do a follow-up album, I'm always like, I don't know. Is there kind of what's going on? But I think I was pleasantly surprised. You know, I like that it's still very much Earthside, but it feels like they've grown vastly between the debut album and here. It's almost as if they had put out, say, 2 albums between the first album and this second album, just in how much it feels like the music's matured and how much the band has grown overall. So even though it's been 8 years since the 2 albums, it feels like the 8 years were not just spent sitting on their thumbs. It feels like they really did change and develop. If I were to kind of point at any kind of criticisms I would have with this album, it was that I think there's too many features on this particular piece. Like
I was gonna bring that up.
Every track except for my favorite track off of the album has one or more features on it, and it's
kind of an incredible list, but equally I feel like a lot of the features are, I don't want to say like they're non-people because they're obviously all musicians, and you know, I mean the album does sound amazing, but you're kind of like, what are they? I almost feel like it takes away from you know, because you're am I listening to Earthside? Like I mean that's what it says, but it's like, am I listening to like a compilation album of like other people's work? People that, you know, you've not necessarily heard of. I think most people would struggle to say they've heard of most of the features. I mean, I only recognize 2 personally.
I will admit, and I'm, you know me, I'm huge into the progressive rock landscape and the musical landscape. I didn't recognize a single one, if I'm being honestly.
Oh, no, well, there's definitely 2 you recognize.
Is there? Is there?
So on track 10, we've got Bar Kolstad of Leprous, the drummer for Leprous.
Okay, so
on that track.
Okay, so
and then track 9 has got Dan Tompkins from Tesseract doing some stuff.
Okay,
so those are the 2 that I pick up.
I guess because like I know of these people, but I don't recognize their names, right? So like I could probably might know a lot more, but like I don't know their names, and I know that's on me, but.
Yeah, and it's a bit weird that they're all kind of like in the metadata, like listed when you look at the album on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. Like every track's like it's like kind of reading an essay, trying to read. You know, that's the kind of thing that goes in the linear notes. I feel even if you do have that many features, you don't necessarily like put it.
The only one that actually has it in the title is, at least on Spotify, is number 4, featuring AJ Channer.
Yeah, it's from a band called Fire from the Gods, which I've not heard from.
No, and it's odd because like it has a lot of like rap styling to it, and it's one of my least favorite tracks off the album. The only reason why I really like it is because it bleeds perfectly into Watching the Earth Sink, which is my favorite track off of the album. And if I were to at least recognize the things that I love about this record, is that it still has all the things that I love about Earthside, It, even though it does feel like Too Many Cooks in the Kitchen and almost a compilation album at that point, it still feels very much like an Earthside record, and a lot of that is just due to the cinematic, landscapey scope that the music takes on. But yeah, so like I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good time. I think it's, in my mind, I think it's a stronger record than their debut album. But it is with, it still has a few flaws. There's a few rough edges on it. But I think it's still a good time. I mean, if I'm going to recommend the TEMIC album, I will obviously recommend this one as well. But I could also see some people being a little bit frustrated with this record.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, for me, like I've tried my best to listen to it. I'm not saying it's bad because by no means. There's so much going on, but that's where I've kind of struggled a little bit. But again, I just need to listen to it more. That is genuinely it, because there's so much going on. There's so much depth. There's like a live strings and brass band like in the background. On The Lesser Evil, which I think is the track that's like still, it stands out to me. There is so much going on and so much to digest, which honestly is kind of just a treat, really. Like it on paper, it looks intimidating, with all the features and everything.
Yeah.
But you think of a band like Ayreon that has a similar, if not triple the number of features.
Yeah.
It's still incredibly enjoyable records. So yeah, I'd be very interested to see how they bring this to live with that many features, because obviously there's something that Aaron struggled with for a long time, and even then when he has taken stuff live in recent years, it's like here's a big assortment of vocalists, and it's like maybe a third of them or a quarter of them were the ones that are actually on the record. So it'll be interesting to see if any of these ever get played live with the musicians that they've worked with. But it's definitely an incredible record, and I think if you're looking for some meat and potatoes, right, if you don't want a surface level listen, right, this is the kind of thing that you get your pack of biscuits, you turn off all the distractions, put down the needle, and you just sit there and you focus and you concentrate on this album, and there's a lot to get
there
through.
is a lot to it,
which I love. I think it's cool, and I think I'm gonna continue to keep digesting this and keep just trying to understand like all of the tracks, because I think they all have their own identities as well because of all the features.
So we'll see. We'll see how you digest it. Maybe in the next episode, we can do like a little bit of a follow-up, seeing how you've enjoyed it.
We'll see how we go.
We'll see how you go. But I think that's going to do it for us this week on The Metalhead. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and spending a little bit of time with us, talking about some metal music. If you want to get in contact with us, we have an email, themetalheadpod@gmail.com. And we have some socials as well. Most places you can find us at metalheadpod. It's where we're on with Instagram and Twitter and all those other fun places. Just the usual thank yous to go around. We've got Nicole Marius, who did the amazing graphic for us. Grace, who did the amazing music for us. You guys for tuning in and sharing this around. We got some great numbers on YouTube. Let's try to keep those going. Get those numbers going up. And I guess until the next time, Grace, how do you want to end this one? What do you got for our final send-off?
Oh yeah, when you put them in and it's inside of it, and then you wrap. It's wrapped, but it's also a replay. It's like a wrapped replay, and you put them in it, and it's like a pit as well, and then it's the whole year. It's every single one, and you get it in an interface, and you pick that up.
That's what you do. That might be the best one yet.
It's definitely the silliest.